Before I take the sediment, I will begin recording the meeting. I will now take the sediment for this meeting of the Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum held on 5 December 2023. The following members are present: Councillors John Anderson, Maureen Chalmers, Jerry Convery, Maureen Devlin, Joe Fagan, Richard Lockhart, Katie Loudon, David McLaughlin, Kirsten Robb and John Ross. We have no apologies. Thank you, and I'll now pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Okay, thank you very much. Turning to the agenda now, item 1 is declarations of interest. Can I ask if anyone wishes to declare an interest? Can you indicate now? I'm not seeing any declarations of interest, so can I come to minutes of the previous meeting? That's item 2. They're on pages 3 to 6 of your packs. They're submitted for approval as a correct record. Can we agree that they're a correct record?
Agree.
Are there any issues anyone wishes to raise on the minutes? I'm not seeing any. I come then to item 3, which is a report on Council Plan, the Connect Plan for 22-27, and this is a Q2 progress report. And we're going to come to Tom Little to present on that report. Tom.
Thanks, Chair. Yep, as you said, this is your biannual report that you get on progress being made against the Council Plan Connect, and in this case, it's the Q2 report covering the period 1st of April through to 30 September of this year. Now, I know members are very familiar with this report, so I will not spend too much time on the background. Instead, I'll go to section 4, which is where the meat of the report is. And on page 9 of your papers, 4.3, it notes that a total of 272 measures are being used to chart progress across all of the resource plans for the Council. And 68 of these have been nominated as key strategic measures for reporting progress against Connect. Now, as usual, we provide a narrative on progress on all 68 measures, and that's in Appendix 1 of this report. But we've summarised that progress at the table at 4.5 in your report, and you'll see there, of the 68 measures, 47 are showing at blue or green, 8 are showing at amber, and 1 is at red, with 12 report later or contextual. The report, as usual, then goes on to break down those numbers as they apply to the Council's outcomes, and each section of that includes details of any associated achievements in the period in question. Skipping ahead to 4.7, there's a second appendix with this report, and that's where we take care of items that were report later in the last version of this report. And there were 3 then, and 1 further is showing us at green, 1 is contextual, and 1 is still report later. That concludes the report. Really, the recommendations are simply to note the contents, in particular 2 appendices, and the key achievements that are narrated in the report. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, bearing in mind the next item does pick up some of the red and amber points from the report, are there any questions on this item? Would anyone wish to indicate? Please indicate now. Okay, can I come to Kirsten Robb?
Thank you. Do you want questions on red and amber in the next section, or just now?
I think it probably makes sense to deal with them in the next paper, where it kind of sets them out in a bit more space. So unless there's maybe a link to other parts of the paper, I would suggest maybe waiting to the next item. If that's all right
fine. I'll wait then.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Maureen Chalmers.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you. It's just really for clarity. Under education and learning, it speaks about child poverty commitment rather than a strategy being produced. Can I maybe just clarify what the difference is?
You're going to have to defer to some of the authors of the report on that one. Anyone want to pick that up? Have you got a page reference just so I can check it myself, Maureen?
It's on page 8. I think it's page 18 of the 23 pages. So it's under education and learning. And it's a completed task. I just wanting clarity on what the difference was.
Right, Okay, thank you.
Chair, can I suggest we take this one? I don't think we've got anybody online from Education Resources, but if we can take that up and we'll come back to Councillor Chalmers and just flesh out what it is that's being referred to
That's
there.
fine.
Thank you.
For this information. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I will maybe, before I move on to the next point, which is just to pick out the ambers and reds within the report, bear in mind that we're seeing very good progress across most of the areas in which the Council is operating in. I would maybe just draw attention to the financial implications, given that we are in the budget setting period. And obviously, our capacity to achieve the outcomes that we set for ourselves will depend, as we see in our risk register and other documents, on the revenue and capital resources that we have available to us. So, a point for me just to highlight before we move on to the next item. So, if there are no other points, I will come now to item 4, and that is to zero in on the resource plans, red and amber results. And Neil Reid is going to present this report. Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Indeed, this is the much anticipated red and amber results report. So the report that Tom has just given concerns Connect at Q2, and Connect contains a subset of measures which are in resource plans. And this report looks across all of the resource plans and brings to the fore any measures which were reported or will be reported as red or amber for the period up to September 2023. So it includes all of the reds and ambers which are in Connect and then some. So the definition of red and amber is given at 3.1 there. As usual, it really means there has been some degree of slippage or a fallback against the target that we're expecting to achieve. The detail of the numbers is contained at 4.2, where there's a table showing the reds and ambers across the different resources. And you'll see that for the period we're talking about just now, there are 29 in total. There are 28 ambers and there is 1 red. This is an increase from the previous year, but to see it in a bit of context, if you look at the 29 as a percentage of the total number of measures across all of the resource plans, then it's 10.7%, whereas last year we were looking at 7.7%, so that's what last year's total of 18 represents. So it's a 3 percentage point increase, but it's maybe not as large as the raw numbers might lead you to suspect. At 4.4, there is a breakdown of the reds and ambers across the outcomes in the council plan. And as usual, the detail of the reds and ambers are reported in full in the appendix to this report, which comes from the improved system. So each red and each amber is given a bit of narrative to accompany it. And remedial action, if necessary, is contained within that narrative. So essentially that is the report, and the recommendation is to note the content and the actions being taken. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. Can I ask if there are any questions on this report, and if so, could you please indicate now? I have one indication so far, and that is from Katie Loudon, and then I have another from Kirsten Robb. So, Katie.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I've got 2 of the points, 1 amber, 1 red, which I'd like a bit more information on. The first one, so it's page 3 of the appendix, and it's the amber stat on the number of roads casualties. I know this hasn't been finalised yet, this statistic, but it is concerning, obviously, to see the increase in figures here in comparison to last year, and some of the rises seem quite stark. I'm not on the Road Safety Forum, but I know in their November meeting there was a presentation on Council and Partners' approach to casualty reduction. So there's a bit of a breakdown of the contents of that presentation in the minutes. I'm just wondering that, given this rise, given these figures, if that's something that can maybe be revisited after we do have the final stats for the year and shared more widely. It sounds like it would be something that would be useful for all of us to hear through something like area committee or the presentation sort of revised and sent out to us. So that was it was a request rather than a question. Second one was about on page 5 of the appendix, where there's that red measure on reports submitted to the Children's Reporter. Obviously there's significant staffing issues which are touched on here, and it's good to see that there's a mention of a more flexible approach to recruitment, which makes sense in that context, and also obviously good to see that there has been an improvement in performance since Q1. Again, once the data is finalised, could we maybe have some more details of how long these delays are? Because obviously, although I appreciate the point about making sure that children and families aren't adversely affected, the knock-on effect of them is obviously going to be very much dependent on whether we're talking about a few days for these delays or a bit longer. So a bit more information about that would be good. Thanks.
Right, okay. I'm going to take Colin Park in the first instance to deal with the roads inquiry, and then I'll see if we can get somebody, from social work as well. But before I do that, could I maybe just take the opportunity to slip in a question of my own, Colin? Do these figures, I assume these figures relate to South Lanarkshire in its entirety, so will they include our trunk road network, or, no, just a bit of clarification for me. Okay, over to you, Colin.
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor Loudon, for your question. So just to answer your point there, Councillor Fagan, yes, they do include all accidents in South Lanarkshire. That does include the trunk roads as well. The stats are concerning. This isn't a kind of reason to compare them, but across Scotland they're also concerning. We have seen an increase. I was at a Road Safety Partnership Board for Scottish Government a couple of weeks ago, and we're seeing that across the entire network as well. We're not sure. There's a bit of research developing. Is it post-COVID? Are people are they taking more chances? We don't know. We don't know the answers, but it's not just South Lanarkshire. What I'd also draw attention to is there was a paper presented in June to the Road Safety Forum, which had the full previous 2022 years stats in there as well. So 2020 we were up at 319 overall accidents. That dropped way down to 254 in 2021, then back up to 278. So as it's currently tracking just now, we are sitting at 215, which is kind of higher than we would like at this time of year. That compared to 166 last year. Let's get through this year, and we'll probably get those stats for 2023 confirmed round about spring next year. There'll be a paper taken to one of the forums, and we can decide whether we want to go into a wee bit more detail at an area committee to explore that as well. But it is concerning. We're still focused on prioritising the investment that we do have where accidents are occurring, and that was discussed at the most recent Road Safety Forum as well. But one we're aware of, and we're continuing to track it, Chair. Thank you.
Right, okay, thanks for that. So I suppose it continues to be part of our monitoring in this forum, and you've set out where else it would appear. Martin, could I ask you to pick up the point in relation to social work?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Loudon, for that question as well. What I would say, and you're right to highlight, the performance obviously is improving, and I've checked the most recent figures just this morning before coming down, and we're still reporting that at 70%. So we have obviously improved the position from where we were in Q1, which was obviously 51%. You picked up on the issue around sort of staffing and the fact we're 30% down in that. And just to give you a bit of reassurance, we obviously are doing quite a bit around that, around the recruitment pathway and also the career pathway for social workers. So just now, if a social worker comes into post, generally their next natural step would be a team leader. What we're trying to do is formalise a senior practitioner role in between getting to team leader, and that's part of obviously trying to retain staff. The recruitment issue itself is not, and Colin picked up on this in the point he made, it's a national issue, obviously, around social workers. It's not something that's unique to South Lanarkshire. Just in terms of timescales, etc., beyond that, we obviously try and do these as quick as possible. Beyond the timescale, I can get a breakdown for you on the figures. I don't have them to hand in front of me, but it's certainly something I can provide for committee if that's helpful.
Great, thanks very much.
Okay, thanks for that. See, just before I move on to the next question, could I just ask Martin, are we confident that it is social work staffing, as in qualified social worker staffing, where we think the issue really lies, or is there any concern, as I know has been expressed in the past, because I don't think this is a new kind of pressure in the service, are there other parts of the service, such as admin support, which are contributing to the kind of underperformance against our target?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Fagan. Just to give you an idea of just the recruitment and the attraction to posts, recently we just advertised for the senior practitioner role and we get about 26 to 30 applications for them. We're not getting the same volume for social workers. In terms of admin, we've gone through a wee bit of what I would say is it seems to be peaks and troughs. Probably about 2 years ago, we were really struggling to recruit into admin posts. It is getting slightly better, but with things like obviously pay inflation, etc., being a bit better now. So those do contribute, but the main thing is it's social workers that undertake this particular role. I should add that, see, in terms of some of the activity around this, we're actually trying to deal with it at an earlier stage as well. So, see the early intervention teams we've got around the family support hubs, the new cases that would come through the reporter are being picked up by them in a lot of instances now. So that's actually managing to mitigate against some of the demand coming through the system, and what the social work fieldwork teams are doing are concentrating in the more complex cases. The other thing we're doing is trying to get in earlier at the JAT stage in the schools, the joint assessment teams stage in the schools. So that's been another thing that we've tried to do to obviously try and stimulate or mitigate against some of the demand coming through.
No, thanks for that. And as with the previous item, this will continue to be monitored as part of the forum's work. Okay, can I come now to Kirsten Robb, and I will follow Kirsten Robb with Richard Lockhart. Kirsten.
Thank you, and thanks for all your reports, everybody. So just a wee bit of follow-up on the road traffic casualties as well. I'd appreciate the information that Katie had raised as well, just a bit more, when you've got it, Colin, analysis of what we think is leading to the increase in casualties. But it was just the additional thing is about how the target of 279 is determined. I'm presuming that's something we want to stay below, and just to understand a bit more how we set that target, really. Thank you. I had a wee second one as well. Do you want that just now too?
Yeah, might as well, yeah.
Okay, second one is on page 55, and just to get any more information about income generating activity. We had a question about the timescales. What does shortly mean? Thank you.
Right. Okay, Colin.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor, for your question. So I'll maybe share with you, there was a paper taken to the Road Safety Forum in June this year, which just sets out the background to Scotland's road safety framework. So that was published by the Scottish Government in 2021. It sets out both short and long-term targets for road casualty reduction across a whole range of target groups, children, adults, etc. as well. So I can share that one with you. So these are national targets, which we obviously look to contribute to. So I'll pass that on later, Councillor, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Unless Kirsten wants to come back in that, I will come now to Alison to pick up the second question. Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Robb. Yes, there's a paper currently in production which has been looking at all the revenue generating opportunities for the council since I've been in post. We've been exploring a number of commercial opportunities around office development, industrial development, linked to the inward investment strategy, also wind farm opportunities, solar array, battery storage, and even film and TV. So there's a number of opportunities, and that paper will be coming to committee in the new year.
Okay, thanks very much. Alison, so unless Kirsten wants to come back in any of that, I will move to Richard Lockhart. Richard.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Colin, spotlight on you again. We're looking back at that one that we discussed on page 45, the road casualties. I tell you what I'm thinking is, having gone through quite a long meeting the other day about the desire, or at least the intention, to convert 3/4 of the roads in Scotland into 20-mile-an-hour limit roads, which is going to cost a lot of time, a lot of money. The thing that I'm interested in is those figures that you've got are very broad brush, and bearing in mind that Scotland, and our bit of Scotland, has motorways, it has A roads, it has B roads, it has narrow country roads, it has a lot of urban roads as well. I'd be interested to see what the breakdown is per road, if you like, and per speed limit of these casualties, because it's all very well making everything 20 miles an hour, but as we all know, most people will probably observe it, but a lot won't, and whether you put 30 or 40 or 50, there will always be those who ignore it. And I'm interested to see how deeply people have dived, if you like, in the application of this 20-mile-an-hour limit into where the casualties happen, because it may be that there's a huge increase in certain areas and a decrease in others, and we get absolutely no sight of that at all in the numbers that you produce here.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Do we have any deeper analysis of that, Colin?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Lockhart, for your question as well. There's statistics published every spring, and really you could dive as deep as you want into them. Today, we've kind of kept it relatively simple. The paper, which I referred to the Road Safety Forum in June there, it talks about overall casualty numbers as a headline, but you can drill that down into fatal, serious and slight. You can drill it down into child, serious, fatal and slight as well. You can go even further, and you can start to understand what's happening on A-class routes, B-class routes, motorways as well. Positively, the direction of travel is downwards and has been for the last 10, 15 years. The last 2 years before this year have been particularly good, albeit still far too high. So, again, I think the forum to maybe go into a little bit more detail will be the Road Safety Forum. So round about probably April, May, I can't actually remember the dates, but April, May, spring, summer next year, we'll have a paper which will look to try and go into a little bit more detail in relation to where these accidents are occurring. I do remember many years ago looking myself because I saw some stats were going up, and I thought we were doing better on our local roads. But when I did dive deeper, the improvements were actually happening on the motorway. So again, it's not always beneficial. But road safety is everyone's responsibility. So whether it's somebody that's driving in the motorway or driving it on a local road, it's important just to see overall casualty numbers coming down. Just for the avoidance of doubt, though, in terms of the 20 mile an hour limits that you were talking about there was a paper went to the Road Safety Forum 2 weeks ago. So that's not yet been decided from Scottish Government what's happening there. So there is a national approach that could kind of mirror what Wales are doing, or what Wales have done, where essentially overnight 30 mile an hour limits become 20. So there's a big bang approach there that certainly industry and kind of road safety professionals are looking to promote and welcome. On the other hand, that overnight changes things very, very quickly. So you need to make sure you're getting it right there. So I suspect maybe January, February we'll hear a decision from national government what route they're going to go down. If they're not going to go down the national route, then it'll be left to local authorities to decide what roads are suitable for 20s, and that gives us a greater degree of control. However, whether we can prioritise the same big bang approach that would happen across Scotland, we'll have to wait and see in terms of finances available. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. Richard, is there anything you want to follow up with there?
Well, yeah, thank you, Colin. Yeah, I only that, in a sense, you haven't come up, if you like, with numbers. What worries me always is, and I drive around all these roads, I have children that go to primary schools, I have villages and all sorts of places where the road conditions differ enormously. And the accident casualty figures are interesting, and I think they do deserve more detail because, our children actually, for instance, the fatalities or the injuries around schools, or is it on country roads, for instance? That sort of information, I think, should inform us, if you like, as to the value, if nothing else, of this overall blanket approach that the Scottish Government may be planning or may be handing on down to you to do. I can wait till April or May or whenever the numbers come out, but I just feel there's very little information on which to base a judgment, if you like, as to whether we are doing well or doing badly. We may be doing well in some areas, we may be not doing so well in other areas. Thank you.
Thanks. I think even setting aside the issue of the 20 mile an hour limit, I think it would be interesting, given that it's an area where we're not meeting our targets, albeit we're nearly there. I still think it might be an area to just delve into a bit further. So could I suggest that the latest information that would have gone to the Road Safety Forum, could I ask that that's maybe circulated to members of this forum, if nothing else, to see how it might be presented? And then if we want to do a kind of deeper dive and maybe some follow-up questions. But I appreciate the point that the most up-to-date figures, the most up-to-date report won't be available until the spring. But perhaps just to understand how that's presented, that might be of some interest to members. And I think in any event, we want to look for patterns to see whether it's the 20 mile an hour issue or another issue. I think we do want to look for patterns to understand where there might be vulnerabilities in the road network. And I know that's the kind of work that your officials will be doing, Colin, anyway. So I think if there's any information you think that's relevant to share with the committee, please feel free to do that at the same time. Would you be happy with that, Richard?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Can I come now to David McLaughlin?
Thanks, Chair. Interesting to hear some of the comments, and as Colin mentioned, we did discuss this at the previous Road Safety Forum. Richard mentioned the 3/4 of the road, but in Colin's figures, when I asked him what percentage it is, it's something like, I can't remember, Colin, but it's much more than 3/4 of the roads. You can maybe correct me again, but almost all of the 30 mile per hour roads that we know at present will reduce to 20 under the description that was read out to us at the Road Safety Forum. And I gave my concerns. I'm slightly concerned about the blanket approach. I know that 20 mile an hour in certain places is warranted and merited, and it helps. But when you spoke about Wales, certainly there's been a real backlash. Now, you could be a bit selfish about this and say people don't really care about road safety, they just care about getting somewhere quick. Road safety is a very important issue, and if 20 miles an hour speed limits helps road safety figures and reduces casualties, then that's got to be looked at. But it's the level at which they're proposing, Transport Scotland, I think it is, it's in charge of this or heading this up. The level at which they're proposing is just far too much, and some of the discussion we had at the Road Safety Forum is around compliance. The limited amount of 20 miles per hour speed limit roads that we've got at the moment don't really get policed, and police resources are reducing dramatically, as we know. So to extend this to the level at which is being suggested here is just going to be unworkable as far as enforcement is concerned. And when something like that is in place and it's just seen as almost pointless because there's nothing anybody can or ever does or has done about the speed limit, people in breach of the speed limits. So Richard's point is a good one. I would like, as chair of the Road Safety Forum, in discussion with Colin, I've spoke about it quite a bit. I'd be really encouraged if we could be looking at, if it's down to local authorities, and it might not be as Colin has suggested there, but if it's down to local authorities where we do it, that we have a very careful look at where we're going to implement these, and rather than just having a sort of general broad brush approach. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask if there are any other questions? If not, then I'll bring this item to a close. The next item is item 5, which is urgent business. I've not been notified of any items of urgent business. So at this point, I'll ask the clerk to stop recording and I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you everyone for your attendance. Thank you.